Thank you so much, Nancy, for this lovely introduction. And I wish I could be there with you in beautiful Hong Kong at this time, but it's also great to be able to just interact with you and to see some of you in the audience, and great to see people that I know. So let me share my screen with you. And yes, I'm happy to share with you today some insights on school participation in citizen science as an arena for transformative educational change. And I hope to convince you that such transformative educational change can be accomplished by empowering networks of research practice partnerships through co-creating design knowledge. Now, this is a lot to unpack, but I promise to do so step by step. So let's start. So in recent years, our society has been rapidly changing, and more than ever, we're facing environmental, health, economic, and social challenges. And these are major concerns for all of us, but today's youth are those who will particularly need to cope with the consequences. At the same time, we have in our networked society access to innovative and fascinating opportunities to learn and explore such topics, and in fact, almost any topic. Some of these tools use live databases and enable interacting with people with various expertise. In recent years, there has been criticism regarding the state of education, emphasizing this gap between the potential for learning in our society, which is huge, and current schooling. Collins and Halverson, for example, in their book, Rethinking Education in the Age of Technology, write that schools everywhere are anchored in the past and aren't preparing youth for the complexity of today's world. Or in their book, What's Worth Teaching, Collins emphasizes that what a student should learn is to be a knowledgeable person, a good citizen, a thoughtful worker, a reflective thinker, and a valuable friend in a complex, dynamic society. So in order to address these gaps, several vision and policy documents were written referring to the future of education, such as this OECD document, which translates the 4th Sustainable Development Goal on quality education into practical guidelines and claims very clearly that education needs to equip students with the skills they need to become active, responsible, and engaged citizens. We claim that a very interesting phenomenon in society called citizen science has the potential to bridge this gap. So let's see what this citizen science is all about. Up to several years ago, citizen science didn't have a clear definition because it was a kind of a bottom-up practice. Several years ago, an international community of citizen science practitioners and researchers developed a set of 10 principles that are today the kind of like 10 commandments of the field of what citizen science is. So the first two actually define what citizen science is and what citizen science projects are. For instance, this one that says that citizen science projects are those that actively involve citizens in scientific endeavors where the citizens have a meaningful role. The citizen scientists, this is what they are called, the people from the public. They can be contributors, they can be collaborators, and sometimes even the project leaders. Then citizen science projects have a genuine scientific outcome. So we're not just playing around as if we are contributing science. Together, the public, the citizen scientists, and the scientists are answering a research question or sometimes informing policy. The other principles provide standards for quality citizen science. So it's not just about doing citizen science, but aiming for mutual benefits for the citizens and the scientists, enabling participation in multiple stages of the scientific process, providing feedback to participants, being aware that citizen science is a research approach with limitations and biases that should be considered for. Making data publicly available, this is a very important aspect of citizen science, and acknowledging the citizen scientists in all sorts of publications. And I want to show you some examples. So here, for instance, this is an article published in the journal Nature. Note here the credit for over 57,000 players in this digital citizen science gamified project called Folded. And there's a webpage where all their names appear. The players here predicted spatial solutions for protein structures, which the artificial intelligence couldn't produce at that time. Today, with ChatGPT and so on, the AI tools are much stronger. But in 2010, this was published in Nature, and the players were able to predict these structures by spatially folding in a game these structures. And you can only begin to imagine how these people from the public felt to be included in this article published in Nature. Here you can see an example of a scientific publication in the Journal of Plankton Research. The article is about a shift in swarming patterns of jellyfish in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. And the data were obtained through a citizen science project in Israel. You can see here that the scientists acknowledge and thank all the citizens who contributed jellyfish observations, and especially to students in the Rambam School, which is located right here at the north part of Israel, very close to the shore. And these students participated in one of our projects. So at this stage, you might be asking yourself, why? Why would citizens want to take part in citizen science, and why would scientists want them to do so? So actually for citizens, they volunteer. They wouldn't have volunteered if they wouldn't have felt that this was something, a source of enjoyment and learning. And often citizen science enabled them to better understand science, which may increase their interest in science. For the science and scientists, citizen science increases data collection in a cost-effective manner and with an opportunity to include local expertise, which is sometimes very, very important for the research. Finally, for society, inclusion of the public and citizen science may improve decision-making processes, increase the societal relevance of policy, and also foster stewardship and activism of people in the public based on scientific evidence. This doesn't necessarily always happen in activism, so this is very important. So you can see here that there is a potential for a win-win-win situation. Today, there are myriad of online and hybrid projects that enable anyone to become a citizen scientist. Here, you can see that the Zooniverse portal with dozens of projects in almost any area that you can even imagine. For instance, in this project, Cornell Lab scientists called the public to help understand the nesting patterns of sparrows. Or in this project, NASA scientists invite people to join the hunt for solar gist, and they call these as enigmatic bursts of energy from our own star, the sun. Now, each of these projects provide explanations about the phenomenon being explored, why it is important, and clear explanations regarding the data collections or means of analysis that the public and participants can use to join these projects and be part of the research. In recent years, researchers have begun to map the potential for learning and education in citizen science, such as increase of interest in science, self-efficacy regarding own ability to participate in a science activity. Not everybody feels that they can do so. And then motivation to be part of that. learning of contents, processes, and the nature of science, development of skills of science inquiry, or civic actions that are based on these skills and knowledge. But as Phillips et al., who are the authors of this framework, note, there is a large gap between this amazing and great potential and its realization among youth in general, and specifically, and when we look at what happens in schools. I think it's important to note that citizen science is really rapidly growing, as this bibliometric research shows. So the horizontal axis here shows the years from the mid-50s up to several years ago. And the vertical axis shows the number of documents found for terms such as crowd science, community science, participatory research, etc. All this list that you can see here. And the term citizen science itself was coined in the mid-90s. But as you can see, most of the publications are from the past 15 years, and it's accelerating even as compared with other fields of research that are growing these days. Most of the publications are in the fields of environment, ecology, public health, geography, or biodiversity. What's very clear is that in education, we're only beginning to scratch the tip of the iceberg in terms of research, with only about 2 or 3% of the total publications. So it's clear that there is a tremendous potential here, which is far from being realized. Well, so for this reason and with this background, we initiated about 6 years ago the Taking Citizen Science to School, or TCSS, research center that Nancy mentioned earlier. And these are, maybe I should say, my amazing colleagues. I'm very, very lucky to have such colleagues that come from different aspects from that can research the notion of what it means when we bring citizen science to schooling. So when we initiated TCSS, we aimed to address several practical challenges. First, how to maintain the excitement and the authentic learning when incorporating citizen science into schools where students are required to take part. This is very, very different from the voluntary nature of citizen science, which usually works with the public, with people who say, hey, I want to, I don't know, count stars. It's very different when it comes to school. Another challenge is how to cultivate the development of a learning ecology that fosters mutual benefits for students, school practitioners, scientists, and sometimes the community. And it's important to know that all these stakeholders join this collaboration with different and sometimes competing agendas and very different ways of working and epistemologies. So how do you create an ecology that they can all benefit from, and knowing that, you know, this participation is something that is extra to what they are doing anyway. So we need to have benefits for all these stakeholders. Finally, it's important to support teachers in adapting the citizen science curriculum materials to suit their specific educational context. And note that in Israel, as in most countries, and I just had a small discussion with Nancy before, and I understood that in Hong Kong it is the same. Citizen science is not included in the national curriculum or standards. So teachers are required, when they are come to bring citizen science to school, they need to customize the projects so that they fit the curriculum of other topics. So to face all these challenges, we developed an approach, or if you wish, modus operandi, with 4 main components. First, we operate as a network of research practice partnership. Second, we offer a set of citizen science projects that were co-designed within our network. Third, we provide a modular support system for teachers. And fourth, we developed the Insights platform for co-creating design knowledge within our network. So I will elaborate on each one of these components, and then towards the end of my talk, I will share some of our outcomes. So let's start with the first component. Our center operates as a network of research practice partnerships, which currently includes more than 100 schools and 180 teachers and more than 5,000 students, and 10 scientist teams, each offering a particular citizen science project. If we zoom into a particular partnership within the network, you'll see that it includes one team of educational practitioners, such as teachers, principals, subject matter coordinators, etc., a scientist or a team of scientists, and usually a very dedicated educational researcher who is a graduate student, sometimes from our team, who often acts as kind of a broker or a boundary crosser to help bridge between these worlds of school and the world of the scientist. And in each of these partnerships, we typically implement one citizen science project according to the interest of the school and the availability of the scientists. Since most teachers and principals in Israel are not familiar with citizen science, we couldn't jump right into long-term partnerships without enabling some less committing encounters. So to do so, we developed a multiple levels of engagement model of participation. So there is legitimate peripheral participation. This means that individual teachers may want to come and experience some of our network meetings. They may want to implement sporadic activities from Citizen Science Project, but not commit to a whole project, just to get acquainted with what this means and get to know other teachers who are in the network who may have more experience and can tell them a little bit about what this means. We also have short-term partnerships, and here individual or teams of teachers participate in a community of practice from multiple schools to experience implementation of core activities in a particular citizen science project. So still they're not, committing to a long-term partnership. They're not committing to co-design or something like that, but it's a good opportunity to delve a little bit more into what taking citizen science to school means. And then in some of the schools, we have these long-term partnerships. And here, usually we have co-design of curriculum materials. And this means that around the table, we have the scientists and the people from the schools and the educational researchers to work together on this co-design. Very importantly, we have negotiation of goals for mutual benefits for the scientists and for the schools. We co-plan the implementation, which sometimes looks very different in the different schools and in the different projects. And usually the teachers are involved in educational research. And sometimes they have, when it's over several years, they want to implement multiple citizen science projects over the years. We hold 2 or 3 whole network workshops a year, and these workshops are a great opportunity for, I think, things that you do also with your CITE community, showcasing best practices, sharing research findings, discussing implementation challenges, getting acquainted with relevant educational policies. I don't know how it is in Hong Kong, but in Israel it changes all the time, and we need to see when citizen science is possible to implement and in which programs, and learning about state-of-the-art research in the citizen science projects from the scientists, and this is what these partnerships enable. And these meetings, we have very different compositions of audiences coming to these meetings. So for instance, in this meeting, this was a 3-day co-design hackathon. We had 70 participants with a quite balanced distribution of educational practitioners, scientists, educational researchers, environmental NGO representatives who were interested to see what we're doing, and educational policymakers. It was at the beginning stages of our center, and there were hardly any curriculum materials available then. So the materials design served a good starting point for partnerships to develop. This meeting was much later. It was an online meeting, and it served both newcomers and experienced teachers to get acquainted with the various citizen science projects that have already been piloted, and to learn from the experience of teachers and scientists and plan for their own implementation. So this was the first component of the TCSS modus operandi, and let's move to the second one. We have developed a set of citizen science projects which we offer for collaborations between schools and scientists. All projects were co-designed within the network and are openly accessible to anyone. Unfortunately, currently only in Hebrew, but maybe when we will have our collaborations with Hong Kong, we'll work to translate some of these projects. So, for example, in the Radon at Home project, students help scientists map radon levels at homes in Israel and alert to risky situations. So you might be aware of radon, which is an odorless, invisible radioactive gas that it's naturally released from rocks and soil or even water. And it can get into homes and buildings through small cracks or holes and build up in the air. And over time, breathing in high levels of radon can cause lung cancer. So to participate in this project, students receive these kits, which include a little bottle with a piece of activated carbon, which they can place at various domestic areas in their homes or in their schools. And this is according to the research question that they want to explore. So when they open the bottle, the carbon absorbs the radon particles in the air. They, after 3 days, they close the bottle and they deliver these bottles to the scientist with exact information on various factors, such as whether at which times the window was open or the floor of the apartment where the bottle was placed, and so on. The scientists, they measure the amount of radon in their lab, and they send back to the students a database with the values, which this database, both the students and the researchers can then analyze. So here in the bottom, you can see a screenshot from students' work with CODAP, which is a free web-based data analysis tool designed at the Concord Consortium for educational purposes. And here, what we are trying to do is to help students develop informal statistical reasoning, because it's a very easy app to use. They can drag the components, and it's much easier than Excel, for instance. So let's see another example. Another project is accessible pathways through collaborative street mapping. And here students meet with people with visual impairments to learn about their needs in navigating cities. Then they map their school surrounding using an app called OpenStreetMap to include all sorts of obstacles, such as stairs without railing or traffic lights that are missing the auditory guidance. And then these in turn are analyzed by a geographic information systems scientist to suggest safe pathways for visually impaired. So the end product is similar to like a Google map with directions for walking and for safe pathways for people with visual impairments. Another example is called Sleep, 1/3 of Life. So in this project, students partner with sleep scientists to take part in a scientific research on the effects of teenagers' lifestyles on their sleeping patterns. Now, for each of the projects, we developed a platform that provides all the information and curriculum materials that teachers need to implement the project in their classrooms, and tools for customizing these materials for their specific educational context. This, for example, is a screenshot of the platform for customizing the sleep project, which we recommend for grades 7 to 10. The platform provides an overview of the project, including a recommended sequence of activities that I'll show in a minute, downloadable documents or tools for planning the implementation, and some materials for inspiration that were shared by other teachers. So here you can see a suggestion for an activity sequence for the sleep project. It consists of 9 basic lessons, and these are represented here by the numbered circles. Ideas for elaboration activities with a focus on either inquiry that appear here in the little blue circles, or with focus on collaborative learning in purple. So in activity 1, students start with learning about what citizen science is all about. As I will show later on, we found that it's crucial that students will understand the larger context of the project and that they are part of a real scientific research. Very easily, this can be neglected, and it's a pity because it's really important. Then in activity 2, they learn about the sleep project. And here we have some videos of the scientists who introduced their research. But students also meet with the scientists online at later stages, and some come to the university to meet with them in person and see their labs, which they find really important. So I'd like to zoom into the third activity called What's My Chronotype, to illustrate the type of resources that we provide teachers with. So let's do that. So I don't know if you are aware of it, but Hebrew writing is from right to left. So you'll have to excuse me for only translating the text and leaving the right to left format. Here, teachers can get more information on this specific activity. They can see that the scope is about 45 minutes. They can see the design principles that are implemented in this activity. And this doesn't yet work yet, but they will be able to link to each one of these principles and to learn about them more in an additional platform called Insights that I will shortly introduce to. They can read a short description and learn, for instance, here that in this activity, the students examine their chronotype and discuss with their peers how individuals with different chronotypes can socialize while taking into account their biological clock. And if they click more, they will be able to see and download or use online worksheets for the students. Finally, we incorporate videos that can be shown in class for, such as this one that I want to show you here. And it's it's in Hebrew, but you have captions in English. And I will show about 1.5 minutes from this video.
שלום, אני פרופסור ערן טאובר, ואני עומד בראש המעבדה לשעונים ביולוגיים באוניברסיטת חיפה. בבני אדם קיימת שונות רבה לגבי הזמן שבו הם פעילים ומרגישים במיטבם במשך היום. אפשר לסווג טיפוסי שעון, או כרונוטייפ, לפי שעות הערות והשינה שלהם. יש את משכימי הקום, שהולכים לישון מוקדם, נקרא להם עפרונים. ויש את אלה שהולכים לישון מאוחר ופעילים בעיקר בשעות הלילה, נקרא להם ינשופים. בשנות ה-70 של המאה ה-20 פותח שאלון סטנדרטי שמאפשר לקבוע את הכרונוטייפ. השאלון נקרא MEQ, Morning Evening Questionnaire, והוא מבוסס על 21 שאלות רב-ברירתיות. נסו עכשיו לבדוק את הכרונוטייפ שלכם, בעזרת גרסה מקוצרת של השאלון שמכילה 5 שאלות בלבד. אני בינתיים מכיל פה את האפונים. מה הקונטקט שלכם? באוכלוסייה, התפלגות טיפוסי השעון השונים מייצגת התפלגות נורמלית. רוב האנשים הם בעלי קרונוטייפ מתון ממוצע. רק 15% מהאוכלוסייה הם ינשופים או אפונים קיצוניים. הקרונוטייפ משתנה עם הגיל. בגיל הנעורים הקרונוטייפ נוטה להיות ינשופי, ובגיל 20 הוא עובר שינוי חד ונוטה להיות יותר אפוני. ובאופן כללי, הקרונוטייפ של גברים נוטה להיות ינשופי יותר ביחס לנשים, בעיקר בין הגילאים 20 ל-50. במידה רבה, אורך המחזור של השעון הפנימי שלנו, זה הקרונוטייפ שלנו.
Okay, so I think that you get a sense of what these videos are like, and let's see. So this was the second component of our approach, and let's move on to the third component. We provide a modular support system for teachers to enable specific and on-demand response for implementation in classrooms. So you can imagine that we have very different types of participation, as I showed earlier. So some are only trying out some activities in their classrooms, and some are involved in long-term partnerships. And each one of the participants is engaged only in one citizen science project, but we want to give some systematic also support. That's something that cuts across all these projects. So, for instance, here many teachers asked us for assistance in supporting their students' scientific inquiry process. And we found that, this is important for all the projects. It's not only in a specific project. They were grappling with the question of how to address both the scientist research while also encouraging students to explore their own research question on the topic. So this was a great opportunity for us to discuss the Harris et al. Approach of using what they call nested data in citizen science. What this means is that when students collect and contribute multiple pieces of data for citizen science projects, so these little circles in gray are the multiple pieces of data, they can do so for their own data for self, to answer their own research questions. But some of these data can also serve to answer scientist research questions too, while other pieces of data can support exploring the interest of local groups, such as the whole classroom or the community. So in this way, the database itself serves as a shared space for the collaboration between the multiple stakeholders, the students, the teachers, and scientists. And Harris et al. Found that this is an important aspect, this nesting of data in citizen science in general. And we found that in schools, it's very important to be aware of this. And in this particular meeting with the teachers, we worked together with the teams of teachers to apply the model to the various citizen science projects that they were involved with. So this was the third component of our modus operandi. And now I'd like to introduce the fourth and last one, the Insights platform for specific citizen science project, which the partnership customized for a specific school context. So for instance, one partnership can focus on implementing the sleep project with 7th graders in one school as part of their general science and technology curriculum, while another partnership can focus on implementing the radon project with 9th graders as part of their science majors. And another partnership can focus on implementing the collaborative street mapping project with 10th graders who are geography major. So this raises some questions regarding how to bring together the wisdom developed in each of the partnerships, how to develop cross-project insights, and how to integrate the practical insights with learning theory. Regarding this last point, there is so much research on pedagogical design principles that connect between theory and practice that partnerships can draw on, but people need to be aware of this knowledge so that they don't need to reinvent the wheel. So for this purpose, we developed the fourth component of our approach, the Insights platform. And here the basic element is an implementation story. Here you can see 3 stories that were contributed by different teams of practitioners, but there are also contributions by students and scientists and sometimes multi-expertise teams. For instance, this story is called Wild Boars at the Inquiry Fair. It was written by a teacher who shared her reflection and pride, I would say, about her students' winning of the first prize at the Haifa Inquiry Fair. The students won this prize by presenting the inquiry they conducted as part of our citizen science project on wild boars. So let's have a look at what the story looks like in Insights. This is the story page she created. I blurred the Hebrew and translated the title to give you a sense of what it looks like. So in addition to the title and the text and the pictures that the teacher uploaded, the Insights platform asks people to link each story to relevant design principles from a list of about 25 existing principles that come from the literature. So here the teacher decided to connect the story to 3 design principles: support knowledge representation and organization, bridge in-class and out-of-class learning, bridge scientific inquiry and data science inquiry, and to do so, to decide which principles are relevant to her story, she was able to use filtering and search tools within this system. So let's have a look at one of these design principles. This is the page on the design principle, support knowledge representation in organization. The teacher could read more information about the rationale behind this principle. Here the text is contributed by educational researchers in our team who very carefully summarize in a very accessible manner the research and theory behind this design principle. And this includes both know-how and know-why knowledge. The teacher could also see what other stories have been connected to this principle by other participants. And sometimes additional examples can help see the generalizability of the design principles and also help to understand these principles. It's also important to note that when connecting a story to a design principle, participants may suggest a new principles which they feel that are missing from the current repository. So in this way, the participants within the network co-create design knowledge that connects practical insights with learning theory. For example, one of the principles that emerge from this process is the importance of accountability that students often develop when they know that their input to citizen science project will be used by scientists. So we decided to add a design principle to reflect this called nurture students' accountability for their inquiry process and outcomes, which is now part of the collective knowledge base and includes some practical tips that the teachers added and about how to do so, as well as theoretical underpinnings that we added. So with that, and to culminate my talk, I would like to share with you some outcomes from our research. And I will do this very quickly. We have various findings published on our website, which you're most likely to, most welcome to have a look at. These are in English, and you can find their artifacts regarding articles regarding student learning and teachers' growth and professional development, and the mutualistic learning within school scientist partnerships. I will not introduce them, but I do want to highlight a general outcome emerging across many of our studies, and this is that school participation in citizen science often fosters a sense of meaning and responsibility among the various stakeholders beyond the context that they typically act in. We refer to this as expansive framing, and I want to give you some examples. Let's see how this is expressed among the various stakeholders. For instance, we saw that students often began to view their learning as important beyond the classroom. So they're not learning anymore for only the grade or for the teacher or for their status or even not only for their interest. They feel that they are contributing to the advancement of science, community, and society. For instance, students that says, I felt it was important to invest in the project because scientists will use the data we contributed to help people with disabilities. Teachers too began to view their own expertise as important beyond the school. So it's not only, again, a matter of status or even expertise within schools. They're beginning to see this as part of importance in this larger partnership. So for instance, a teacher that says, providing students an opportunity to do something that really contributes to science, that was fantastic in my opinion, much beyond the didactic goals. And the scientists, some of them already had that, but some of them began to view their own expertise as important beyond the academic world, as contributing to education and societal change. So for instance, this scientist says, a significant part of my motivation is to drive changes in society and in the context of sustainability and nature conservation. Working with children and youth is an important part of that. So I view this expansive framing as an important outcome of school participation in citizen science. It relates back to current conceptualizations of learning in the network society that I've begun my talk with. So the expansive framing of students in particular prepares youth for the complexity of today's world, enables them to become knowledgeable people, good citizens, and valuable friends in a complex dynamic society, and become active, responsible, and engaged citizens. And finally, I hope that this talk has given you some food for thought about how school participation in citizen science can indeed serve as an arena for transformative educational change, and how empowering networks of research practice partnerships through creating design knowledge can bring about this change. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, so very much, Yael, for the wonderful introduction to your work and explaining the design and design principles behind the several projects that among the ones that you have done. So now we have about 10 minutes for questions or other sharing. Can I ask the first question?
Sure.
Right. So, yes, I really like the idea of citizen science, but it's actually, to me, very complex. I mean, talking about partnership amongst schools, amongst teachers, is doable. Building partnerships with, say, the community is also more doable. Partnering with scientists to get them to act as sort of informants is doable. But to actually engage with them in their scientific sorts of endeavors, to me,
yes,
is rather complex. So how do you get, and you're talking about so many different kinds of scientific experiments or investigations. So how do you engage with them? Is there a community of scientists out there who are ready to actually engage with schools and students in this? Yeah.
That's a very, very good question. So yes, when we opened our center, there was one team, the jellyfish, the marine scientists who worked with the jellyfish, who already had a citizen science project, but with the public, not with schools. And they were happy. We knew that they are going to work with us. We thought that they are going to be the only group who is going to work with us. And I'll start with the end and say that today, we have more groups of scientists that want to work with us than we can handle. So just the bottom line, and but it's not as, but it's very difficult. It's very complex because not always they come with the right kind of agenda. So maybe with a group of jellyfish, what worked very good was that they didn't get enough data collected by the public. And they thought, hey, maybe when we work with schools, we can have, we can have much more data here and they can be very good partners. And that worked really well. Sometimes it doesn't work well because some of the scientists come, and this is a very important point, and one of our design principles for designing these partnerships is that the scientists, all the stakeholders should come with wanting to develop in their own expertise. If the scientists come because they have this educational vision and they say, oh, this is great, now we can be part of education, it's not the right kind of it's not the way that will produce a good partnership. We do want them to want the students to be real partners. And there is what happens is that when we work with a team, there is a large chunk of time that we use for negotiation and for understanding the different practices, the different agendas, the different timelines. Schools want everything to happen very, very fast, and the scientists say, oh, no, it won't happen in half a year. So yes, there is a lot of negotiation that needs to take place, and I think that today we know better how to do that, and even some kind of commitments that both schools need to make and scientists need to make and us need to make. And sometimes we need to say, also put some borders that we're not going to do, we're not going to be there all the time with you. You'll need to be, you'll need to take some responsibility here. And sometimes, for instance, schools think that the scientists will be able to come every week and be with the kids and go to the field with them and help collect data. And this cannot happen. So they need to know in advance, what is it that the scientists can bring to the table and where are the limitations? And some of that, we need, the educational researchers and designers need to take into account. So for instance, at the beginning, we didn't have these videos. So the scientists had to either come physically to the school and explain their research, or meet using Zoom. But how many times they can do that, So it's a very big point, and we were surprised that so many scientists, when they saw what we were doing, said, hey, we want to be part of this.
Good. Thank you. Actually, it's there. I saw in one of your slides, there's some, one of the things that was shown there was this Zooniverse. I'm just wondering whether there is any international organization of these scientific sort of groups that are actually finding such citizen science to be helpful to them. I mean, scientist communities. Is there such?
There are 3 organizations of one European, one Australian, and one American, and they are all talking with each other, who have amazing portals with so many projects. These projects are typically open for the public, and typically you cannot take them and use them in school as is. And actually, when we opened our research center, we thought that we'll have one project at home, the in-home project, and that the others will take international global projects that are there online, and we will develop curricula around them so that the schools will be able to use them in a way that it can integrate with their own curriculum and help them develop the students' own research questions. And at the end, we didn't need to do that because we had the local groups, and there is benefits in having the groups there who can talk with the students. And sometimes the projects that are online are not always, it's easy to get to the real data. We want students to work with the real data, the ongoing data. And but yes, the potential is huge, and we do want to develop some global projects that schools will be able to use. At the moment, we didn't invest in that direction, but I'm happy to share afterwards some of my slides and the three links to the three portals. There is so much out there.
Thank you so much. So is there any, okay, yes, Judy.
Hello, Professor Yael. I really like your sharing. I have two questions. First, I think the practice you have done in different projects are amazing. I have two questions. The first one, how, I just don't know, how can you make this project happen, because there are many different projects that are implemented in different schools. And also, you know, in this part, you have the practice part, and also you have the theoretical, you know, theory part. And also you need to get the insights from, you know, the practice. And then you just make the insights scale to other projects. I feel it's very, I don't know who is the focus or who is the primary, you know, project director, or, you know, the organization or part to implement it, to make it happen. That's my first question. And my second question is, you know, after you have done all these projects, how can you make these innovative projects sustainable, or make it scalable to like, you know, schools at maybe in Hong Kong, or maybe in other schools in mainland China, or in some other places? How can we just, because I really like what you have done. So I really want to know how to make it sustainable, no matter in your previous schools or in other schools. Thank you.
So thank you very much. These are excellent questions. And yeah, it's I'll start with the first question of how do you really make this whole operation work, and who leads these projects, because you're right, it doesn't happen by itself. And it's not coming from the schools, and it's not coming from the scientists. So we have our group, we have 7 PIs in the project, and we have a team of about 25 researchers who are, some of them are graduate students and postdocs who are working with us. And we usually, the place where we start, and we just make this something that teachers will hear about, is in the group meetings, the network meetings that we have. And we use our networks to tell everybody, and people in the Ministry of Education help us advertise. So people come, and first they begin and listen. And then they say, oh, you're crazy, this is impossible. But then some of them start, and they start with something small. And then, you know, it's really these partnerships develop slowly. I think until a project becomes something that can work in many schools, it takes something like 4 or 5 years. We start without implementation, just a year when we sit together around the table and think about, the different agendas and so on. And then we develop these curriculum materials and we try them out in one school. And then the teacher works with other teachers to teach them how to work. And also the scientists are learning and we are learning it. We're learning together because this is something that didn't exist before. We need to learn together. And this is also what makes this fun. But it requires, we had a big grant that for our first 5 years, and we have now probably another grant that for several more years. And the issue of scalability is a very big one. First, I can tell you that we don't yet have very good answers to that. But this is exactly what we are working on right now. Just yesterday, we had a meeting or 2 days ago, we had a meeting with people from the Ministry of Education to try to think together how this can be implemented in a large scale, but without losing the projects are not standalone projects. Even when we develop a lot of learning materials, it's rare that a teacher or a school would take this and implement this. And when they do, they often do this without the collaboration with the scientists. So yes, it's a big question, and I hope to have some collaborations with your group and with Nancy. We are going to meet in Montreal and brainstorm ideas of how we can do this internationally. We are also thinking with some other groups on specific projects, first to translate them, but also work together to think how to do this together. There is interest in citizen science among many people internationally, all over the world. And there is interest in bringing this to school, but it's a field that is developing. I have to say that very soon a special issue in instructional science is going to be published. I don't know if it's going to be in June or maybe only in August. It's going to be about school participation in citizen science, and it's growing. So I'm really happy that you're interested and looking forward to maybe do some collaborations and think about these very, very difficult questions together.
Right, thank you. Yes, it's actually more complex than I anticipated, although I know it's really difficult, but everything has a start. So is there any final question? I think we have, okay, yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Kelly. So when you talk about citizen science, it's very inspiring, but I was thinking about whether there is citizen humanities. And so in the humanities is also very intriguing, and I think it's worthwhile to motivate our students in that area as well. Do you have any experience or any thoughts on developing this citizen humanities? Thank you.
Very good question. Thank you for that. We have, when I say citizen science, there is this very, very nice book that is called The Science of Citizen Science, where they say that when we talk about sciences, we talk about natural sciences, social sciences, and humanistic sciences. And yes, there are more, the field of citizen science started out more with environmental and ecological projects, but more and more, you'll see even in the Zooniverse portal that I showed you, there are many projects that are in social sciences and humanities. So for instance, the SLEEP project that we have is in social sciences, and but there is one project that I didn't show, it's in development right now, which is on humanistics, and this is about the Geniza documents. These are historical documents from the mid-ages that were scanned, and they are all online, and scientists are looking for people who can decipher what's out there and help first of all help even in the script, just understanding and figuring out the scripts, but also creating a database of all this knowledge and exploring that together. So we have one project in that direction. There are also many projects that are interesting in history and in arts. So it's I agree with you. When I talked about a huge potential, it's even larger. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Really, I mean, I like Xiao's, Dr. Xiao, who is our colleague in the faculty education, and she's doing a lot of wonderful work on sorts of, she has, well, a number of projects, but one of which is on actually preserving cultural heritage. So I think if we expand science beyond natural sciences, then I think the crowdsourcing of citizen knowledge and intelligence is actually even bigger. So thank you, Yael, for such a wonderful talk and leading us into such a wide world and challenging world, which I believe would be getting more and more important, in terms of education. So let's all give a big hand of applause to.
Thank you.
Thank you.